Hi everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Local Podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And my name is Rich. Why have I said it like that? First one of the new year.
Oh yeah, no, we've replaced you with an AI in 2025.
That would be so much easier.
So much less time consuming. You know? Everyone have a good time, it's fine.
Just replace me with some comically simple software.
I mean, you're a bit harsh on yourself there.
I can do a flowchart if you like. You can read the reviews yourself. Quirky soundtrack, yes, no. Unusual characters, yes, no.
Yeah, I mean, we probably have things that would definitely hit certain. I guess what's the word I'm looking for? That's the kind of thing. That's one of my things that I forget. I don't know what words
what
are.
You're saying halfway through saying it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of my.
A trope.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, tropes. Oh my god. Yeah, tropes. Yeah. Anyway, so that's one of mine. Forget to speak on a podcast where you speak.
But apart from that, flying start.
Yeah, apart from that, AI. So I used AI. Happy 2025, everybody. By the way, listening. Flying start. I used AI to try and create an image for our Instagram that said dry.
Yep.
DRY.
Yep.
January.
Yep.
Like the concept
like
of
dry January, but involving vehicles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it refused to understand that.
Didn't like text.
Yeah. So you are more useful than. I mean, you do understand. Yeah, I was going to say.
Am I?
You're looking at me like the concept is stupid. So maybe the AI also was doing that when. When I was
getting more sweets.
Dodging that bullet. Anyway,
Dodging that bullet.
The idea of Drive January is that we're going to play lots and lots of, I guess, vehicular games.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily going to say they're definitely car driving games, but thereabouts. I think a lot of mine are. So I think a lot of mine are simulation sort of racing games, actually, which I'm not something I'm drawn to usually. And that's probably why I'm thinking, I'll try and get through some that I've not played before.
Fair enough.
Normally mine are trying, if you haven't got a boost button, then what
are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting for me because I don't think any of mine have got a mega boost button on them.
I was sport for choice. I was trying to come up with ones that I could use to derail the entire concept.
That doesn't surprise
How many
me.
F-Zeros could I review?
That's the problem, though. When you started thinking about it, I had a really clear list when I started thinking about this, and then
My
all
list
of a
changed
sudden,
like 4 times.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was like, and then I just eventually kind of stuck on one, and now I have so many regrets that I'm like, I should have picked that. But there's always more drive.
It's a long year.
Yeah, dry February. Yeah. I'm not gonna. This is a disclaimer that I will be drinking alcohol at some point this month. In fact, wait.
You already have.
Yeah, we already have. Yeah,
Yeah.
we went out for a meal and some drinks the other day, so that didn't last very long.
Good job. Well done.
So, speaking of good jobs, I always wanted to be a rally driver when I was younger.
So did I.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, then I realised I hate driving.
Yeah, you've mentioned that, I think, very briefly before, I think, in our friendship, that you didn't like driving. Whereas I really like driving, but current driving conditions in the UK are awful because there's snow everywhere. But maybe rally conditions would be quite good. What don't you like about actual driving, and what do you like about game driving comparatively?
Actual driving.
Boost buttons.
I don't like other people.
Yeah,
actually driving also at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas virtual driving,
Single player.
I don't have to bother with them.
Or you can just crush them.
It's fine. Like, I can just ignore them. And even on something like Forza Horizon, like, they're just sort of ghosts in the background kind of thing. I can just ignore them. Whereas actual people in real life fundamentally suck.
Yeah, no, they do. You're right. That is true. I never really thought about it before, to be honest. I'm probably so self-obsessed that I forget there are other people on the road. That is in real life.
Oh, so you're
fine.
one of the people I hate.
Oh no, it's okay. That isn't. I am a nice driver. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
everyone thinks they are.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, no, not everybody. Surely not.
Well, no one's ever in the wrong.
No, there's got to be people that know they are wanky at driving. They're just like doing like 110 miles an hour down.
I couldn't possibly say.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe everybody thinks they're a good driver.
In all seriousness, I think there has been like research into this kind of thing, and I think the stats would surprise you.
Well, that's probably one of the reasons that I thought I wanted to be a rally driver when I was younger, because I was like, oh, actually, more at this driving malarkey. Like, kind of passed my test first time, sort of flying colours and stuff within a few months, and, I was like, oh, yeah, I can just do this, and you hear people sort of struggle with it. How did you get on with yours?
I struggled with it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Learned very, very, very late.
Yeah.
Because I was living in London and stuff, and I just didn't need to learn to drive.
Didn't you?
So
you could get people being obnoxious out of cars in London.
yeah, exactly. I didn't need the extra hassle.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Well, less hassle to be had with our video games then. So I did want to be a rally driver, so I've picked a couple of rally games to start us off on my Drive January Odyssey. Lots of Y's in that sentence. And I particularly wanted to get into something that I've seen brewing on the internet, one of those discussions that people have, which is all around what's the best sort of rally game that you can play in 2025. I was going to say 2024, and we're not there anymore. And a lot of people still nod back to Robert Burns' Rally, I believe that it is, from like 2010. I think it's like a PC game.
Is that because they can mod the ever-loving what's-its out of it?
I believe so, yes. It seems to be that you can mod the shit out of it, and it from what I can see, it just feels... Everyone just says it just feels like you're driving a rally car if you've got, the wheel and things. But other rally games that come up in that conversation are Dirt Rally 2.0 from 2019, and then also people have been discussing then recently as well EA Sports World Rally Championship from last year, from 2023, and that is effectively sort of Dirt 3.0, because Codemasters have moved over to EA to develop for them now. So they were actually bought by EA for £1.2 billion in 2021. But there's a good reason for that. So, and you've hit on the rally.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing Sega Rally. I'm not mucking around.
Yeah, no.
Sega Rally on the Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
All the S's.
There's a lot of people that I know on our socials that are very excited that you're doing that. So.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So,
well, I will try not to let anybody down.
No, well, I think it's, down your alley, rally alley. So, see how it goes.
Down my rally alley.
So, I want to do a bit of a comparison, really, in mine. So, Dirt Rally 2.0 versus effectively Dirt Rally 3.0 in all but name. So, should we try and sandwich it and maybe I'll do a little bit of talking, then have a break, talk about Sega Rally, and then come back to the sort of comparison? Yep. Cool. So, Dirt Rally 2.0. So, from 2019, I played this on Game Pass on the Xbox. It's a sequel to the 2015 Dirt Rally game, which I believe that you've got and played. I think you've got a cool super deluxe version or something over there.
I mean, it's got a Colin McRae Blu-ray with it. That's about as snazzy as it gets. But I played Dirt Rally 2 as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. And it was sort of... it's been made by Codemasters, and they are so, like I said, they were bought for a lot of money and for good reason, because they're so prolific in their driving credentials in video games. They've done Toca touring cars, Micro Machines, Grid, Colin McRae Rally, and then they took over Formula One as well from Psygnosis for a few years.
Did they do Grid as well?
Yeah,
was that them?
Yeah. So it's like they've been around. And doing driving games for a long, long time. This Dirt actually began as a series from Colin McRae Rally, so that was almost a continuation of Colin McRae Rally. The last iteration of Dirt was 2019, and then they were bought by EA. It was one of those things where I think that it's hard to underestimate how much of an impact Colin McRae as a rally driver had on the industry, if you will, during the 90s, and then the license with his name on it, how much of a good job in hand that Codemasters did with that as well. And they spent a lot of time consulting with McRae about the creation of the series, and then they carried that on during the sort of the years they were doing the rally games. They've been doing them, and they've done a lot of consultancy with rally drivers during the time, and you can tell that works for them. So that they just have a massive sort of pedigree in this. I think over 20 years, I'm sure it was like across Colin McRae and Dirt, if you consider that as one whole series, I think they've got 13 games, and of those, yeah, I know it's quite a lot over that 20-year period, and of those 13 games, like most of them are really well received. So it's interesting to know that actually I'd say, are they one of the most consistent, long-lasting series that I can think of over that period of time? They've done such a good job of doing so many games, but also getting really well reviewed. I don't know.
It's true. Like, I would struggle to sit here and go like, oh yeah, like Codemasters put out an absolute stinker and tell you what it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess you could say, well, you know, there's a fine line between being specialists and playing it safe. But yeah, like they certainly, for my tuppence worth, I think they have historically always been very, very good at what they do.
And it'll be interesting to see where they go from here with like the partnership with EA. I will come on, like obviously, like I say, to the EA WRC at the end to see what the first sort of serving is. But to see them sort of flourish and get to this point where they are the name in, you know, almost now, I guess what they're concentrating on most is Rally, but across the driving spectrum, this British sort of, you know, development company that they developed their own engine with Sony at one point as well. You know, it's just like they've done a lot of stuff, and it's really cool. They also did Brian Lara Cricket initially as well, and you know,
of course,
so it's just cool. So,
then me sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, playing it safe."
Yeah, they just played like, you know, defense shots. That's what I was saying. So, what about this game then? Well, I'm going to ask you first then. So, memories of Dirt Rally 2 and Dirt Rally. How would you describe them, and how did you feel about them at the time?
Dirt Rally 1 was a game that I wrote a review for a friend's website once upon a time. So I have fond memories of it.
Destined to be here.
Well, talking on a phone in a spare room. I really enjoyed it, and I really liked how, at the time at least, and I'm sure this is probably a gross generalisation, but like it felt like there hadn't been like a really, really good, high quality rally game for quite a while. Like there had been rally games, but there hadn't been one that was like really good, like almost hardcore kind of sim kind of thing. And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that would say, oh, but they're not hardcore sims, they're sort of sim-like or whatever, but like hardcore enough.
Yeah.
Like if I know I bash it, but if I want to drive a car, I can go and drive a car. I don't want to drive a car. I want to play a video game.
Just go looking outside.
So like it's sim enough for me, right? Yeah.
I love that. I think you've really hit the nail on the head there about the difference between sort of video games. I think when it comes so sim-like, it becomes it's like how realistic and lifelike do you need something to be? That is in before you're like, why aren't you just going?
Football's the other one. Like, if I want to go play football, I can go outside and play football. If I want to like ping a ball around a park with like basically superheroes and like belt it in from like however many dozens of yards out, then that is what I want for my video games. So Dirt Rally 1 I enjoyed. Full disclosure, once upon a time I had one of those snazzy force feedback wheels for my PlayStation. And so I played like Dirt Rally and Dirt Rally 2 with it, and that really added to the experience. Yeah. Like it did. There's no way of sugarcoating it. And I tried going back to Dirt Rally 2 with a controller recently, and it feels good. Don't get me wrong, it feels good to play. And what am I trying to say here? It's noticeable what you're playing it on.
Yeah.
Right? So having the force feedback wheel was one thing. Playing it on the PS4 and the kind of sensitivity of the triggers on the controller compared to playing it, because I picked it up over Christmas, funnily enough, on my Steam Deck as well, because it was like £3.
Yeah, I know. It's so
crazy.
It's so good at the moment. It's like ridiculous. It's like between sort of £3, like you say, and like £6.50 on most consoles.
So as far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If you've got the storage space for it, and you're into this sort of thing, just get it if you haven't already. But on the controller for the PlayStation, I got on with it much, much better than I did on my Steam Deck, because the triggers on my Steam Deck feel that much lighter. So I was I realised, and it took me a good couple of hours to realise I was doing this, I was just like putting too much power into the car as I was trying to go around corners and stuff like that. Yeah. So I was just spinning the wheels constantly. I just didn't notice I was doing it because I was so used to a certain controller feel. And similarly with like the force feedback wheel back in the day, you could be really, really careful and delicate with it, and you would learn how to, use the vehicle of your choice, and really sort of get to grips with what it was doing. And that to me was part of the fun. I wish I could remember who said it, but they reckon that the first Dirt Rally was like the Dark Souls of racing games, where you kind of have this ratcheting up of tension as you go through it and all this kind of stuff. And I get that. Like, there is a certain layer of challenge to it that I think really lent itself to rally games, because it's not like you're going against an opponent there next to you unless you're playing like Rallycross. Which I know you can do, but as far I never really went in for any of that. But for making a time trial based game as challenging as possible, I think they really went about it in the right way, and I've always been a big fan of that.
Yeah, and I think that. Thank you for that, because you perfectly described. Really, I think that probably what most people feel about this is the challenge of it, and it's the first time ever I really felt when I was playing a video game where I actually went, "Oh, I need to take my foot off, or my finger off the trigger.
I need to slow down.
Yeah, I need to actually, this isn't burnout. I can't just climb off the side of the fucking, whatever it is, the imaginary lines that are on there. And it's just like, and you do get a genuine feel for the throttle almost that is in that, and what they do graphically and also from an audio point of view, all of the cues.
The audio,
I know, it's so good, isn't it? Like the exhaust that you could,
the grip being thrown up against the underside of the car and stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that's where I think that in a positive way, you can say that's as lifelike as you want it to be, really, because you do start to get that sort of feeling where it's like, wow, that isn't. I genuinely feel like I'm in control. Maybe not. You're not sat in it, or if you put wherever you want to put the camera. What's your favourite camera? Do you sit in it or out behind it?
In behind the steering wheel. I wish I had a VR headset to play it with, because I think it would be. Well, actually, I think it would be nauseating as hell.
Because you played at an arcade club, and I was like, within about a second, I was like,
I guess because nothing's moving around you in real life, and your body's waiting for the jolts and the judders and all that. I watched a video of about 5 minutes of it on YouTube in VR, and I was like, okay, that's a cool idea, but my God, I think that would make me hurl.
I think. Do you know what? That was the very first thing I ever played in an arcade club in Bury, the first one when I went there. And I was like, I saw a VR headset with rally driving. I'm going to be honest, I can't remember if it was dirt or not, but I went on it, and within about a minute, I was like ready to chunder. I was like, this stag do's not going to. It was like, we hadn't even started drinking yet, and I was like, this stag do's not going to go the way I want it to. Yeah, get out. They went on Beat Saber instead. But yeah, they do such a good job of making it feel like you're in control of that vehicle. I do prefer to have the camera behind. But from what I see a lot on the internet is that people, generally a lot of the video replays I see are people sat in the car and stuff, and I'm like, I've tried it, man, that's so hard. It's so difficult.
Judging the size of the car and stuff.
It's ridiculous, So just kind of like they're sort of, I get virtually looking at your co-driver while you're doing a barrel roll, just sort of staring dead-eyed at them, just like, I think I've killed us both. Just like, sorry. Sorry, Tim. But yeah, so I actually purchased this when I got the deluxe version, which is and I guess that's probably what you got for the £3, maybe even, like where you get the seasons 1, 2, 3, the
and bulbs,
and the Colin McRae flat out pack, because I was just so impressed with even the landing sort of in the game and seeing what was available to me, really. And I'm going to say this: I was impressed initially. Once I played EA, I think that I had different feelings about it. Okay, I'll come back to that. But just to see what there was available to you. The career modes, so like you said, you've got the rally and then you've got the rallycross. I generally found myself more drawn towards rallycross, and I think it's just because it was probably a tad bit more forgiving, because you can smash the shit out of them. You can help them, they can help you corner. But also, I think it's just the way my brain has become hardwired nowadays, where I like a shorter gaming experience and things. So, although at the same time, you do have to. I think it's 5. Is it 5 different heats you've got to go through before you win one race there? So it's not as if you don't have to I guess, practice and practice and practice again. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed the sort of whatever it was about the Rallycross that made it just a bit different. I guess this is where like the I want to be a rally driver when I was younger falls down a little bit. Watching rally driving on the TV, it doesn't really sink in. So whenever I watch on like the Red Bull app or something like that, it doesn't sink in how long the stages are, even though I can see the time.
Yeah.
Like, but when you're doing it yourself and you're driving a car for like 14 minutes down the road, and as you said with the Dark Souls situation, you get 90% of the way through a rally and hit the back of a fucking tractor, and you have terminal damage. It's crippling. It's like it really hurts, like you physically and mentally.
Yes, it does.
I'm not saying that I threw the controller down, but I definitely put it down with a bit of a like I will come back to you later. But was that a satisfying anger? I think it was almost like it was an okay anger to feel. Like,
I think it's totally valid. And like, I mean, it always struck me as a very sort of technical driving game.
Yeah.
Sure, the inputs you might be doing might be reasonably standardized, but I think for how you're having to approach it, it feels technical. So I could absolutely see why you would get 15 minutes in and just be like, oh, yeah. I've already forgotten how the first bit goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't remember that.
Get it.
Hairpin.
I don't think I've ever actually won a rally or any race on any of the dirt games.
I mean,
I only ever turn up.
Yeah, I was finding it on the actual... So I guess that's probably why I was more lent towards Rallycross as well. I was finding it hard just to complete a rally. Like, as in I played this for about a week, and I'd say maybe the first half of the week, like, just to even get to the end of a rally without having terminal damage. It's
all about the Mini Cooper. All about the Mini Cooper.
This like is in this.
Telling you.
There's so many sort of there's 50 cars you can pick from, especially in this extended pack, if you will, where you get all the seasons and the Colin McRae flat out pack. And I think there's like 12 to 13 tracks in the extended edition. So there's plenty of variety in there, and I'm fairly certain that when you do the actual career mode, that it sort of self-generates the rallies differently. That is in, so nice. It seemed like, from what I could gather anyway, every time I went onto it, and every time I had to restart a rally, but it's like right, okay, better restart that again. It seemed to be like a different track every time, which is pretty cool. Nice. So, and I love the idea that. I'm going to be honest, I didn't see it happening too much, but I love the idea that I'd sort of seen where it's like described that the ground cuts up a lot more, that is in, so if you go later in the rally and stuff, like, it's going to be harder really for you. Yeah. I mean, it just felt really hard for me all the time. Like, so, that's probably why I didn't notice. I was like, this is already automatically difficult. I think that, and you'll probably find this out during Drive January, everybody listening, I struggle with customization in games. I kind of just want that auto-tune situation, really. That isn't. I understand that it's fun to build your own car and fun to do those customizable options and stuff, but I don't think I'm really there for that necessarily. But when I did look into it, it seemed like there was enough there to be able to do all the tweaks that you'd want to be able to do in this game. Again, I will come back to that sort of point if I remember, when it comes around to EA WRC as well, because that's got a little bit of a sort of point of difference as well when it comes around to that game. But yeah, I loved as well in this the weather effects, especially when it came to like Rallycross, for example. The very first rally is just like, oh, ho hum, like, as in, I think I did like 3 or 4 in a career. And I did it because it goes up in difficulty. So you complete a career and it's like, oh, you have to do 6 races, and then it's like, oh, you've moved to the next grade. And the next grade immediately is like, oh, it's pissing it down, and it's so muddy. And you're like, oh, I've not done it in the wet yet. And then you're like, oh my god, it's crushing. Like
at Christmas, I had one stage. I wish I could remember which one it was, but like, it was that kind of dark storm where, like, it's basically night.
Yeah.
But the stage was at sunset, so other bits of it were reasonably well lit. And I got partway around it, my frigging headlights went. And I was just like, right, I'm trusting this co-driver so much. All that kind of stuff, I really like that exists in game form for me now.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you just think that you just respect the fact that they've just kicked you in the nuts. You're like, oh, my headlamps are gone. You're like, well, of course they are. Like, of course, I've just hit a tree. Yeah. But at the same time, Like I'm actually blind. Like,
I can't remember which one it was, but if it was 1 or 2. But at one point, my co-driver's voice was cutting out because the radio started breaking and stuff like
really?
that. Yeah.
Well, okay,
and I've never been able to replicate it, but I swear to God, it happened.
So yeah, the other little bits that are in there as well. So the Colin McRae flat out pack. That's sort of a best bits of Colin McRae's career. Again, very difficult, even on the sort of, I guess, what they'd say with the easy options would be. It's like, back in like 1990 when it was nice. It's nice that they've got a bit of an ode, and they seem to carry that through the series, obviously with his name on it. But where I was a bit concerned that maybe they would go away from him because obviously there was the bad. I don't want to say bad publicity, around the helicopter crash and, the causes of it and things like that. And I think there was a bit of concern around, naming rights and things. But it was nice to see them come back to that and sort of say, well, actually, our roots are here and, we can celebrate that almost a bit separately from what had happened. But in terms of that little bit, it's a nice little additional sort of thing. I think I got like sort of through like maybe 2 moments because they're difficult from the start. They're like, you've got to do this. I guess I can't remember what it was now, where it's like you've got to complete this section of the track within this certain period of time and stuff, and immediately you're in a Mini Cooper in the snow and you're like, what? It's like, you just assume I can rally, like. So yeah, it's tough as fucking nails. That is, it really is. Like, and there's a bit where you can get. This is one of the things I didn't really get about it, is like where you kind of get weekly, daily, monthly challenges and things, and they didn't seem to really add anything to it necessarily. Like I kind of went on a few of them and I was like, I don't really feel like, apart from having that small sort of inkling of there's a leaderboard and kind of get my on. But I'd go into it and it was one of those things where it'd be like, oh, you've got a Lancia, like as in the end, straight away you'd be like, oh, brilliant, like a really cool car and stuff. And I wasn't well trained enough to be able to deal with that situation yet and that track. Yeah. So I'd just literally be spinning out in the first 3 seconds, just like, and I'm like, well, and then I'd be like, better just quit this and just DNF. Like, that's my score, there it is. But yeah, they sort of, they didn't really do it for me. What's negative about this game, really? It's a little thin on the ground, in so much that kind of, even though there's quite a few tracks and quite a few cars you can go through, when you buy the deluxe pack, it seems to give you all the money you need in the world, really kind of do what you want, and it stunts progression a little bit. That is, I was almost like, I don't want to spend my money, that is on cars. I'll spend them on my engineer team, maybe, because I kind of don't want to just be given the best cars. Especially because I don't know how to drive them because I'm terrible.
Just going to wrap it around a tree.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have to pay loads in damages anyway. So, but I do like the idea that you've got the realistic sort of thing, like say building a team, building the engineers, building their skill level up. Although that is just buying their skill level, and also the paying for the damages you've caused in the previous race and things. I love the idea that exists. So it's cool that they do a pretty good job of trying to make it as realistic as possible on the surroundings, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, I this is going to come off as really sort of like not. It's going to sound down with faint praise. It feels like a really good Microsoft Excel formula. Like so
you're right. It does. It does sound like it's down with faint praise.
Like. I've only just really started to experience this at work, if I'm going to be honest. I've just moved into a line of work where actually to sort of see a bunch of average ifs and lots of sum ifs and VLOOKUPs all linked together in this sort of almost form of art that's and I feel a bit like that about Dirt Rally too. I feel a bit like when you kind of just sit down and you just see a really good job well done and it just feels super satisfying, and you can just sit there and have your coffee afterwards and just look at it and go, that feels really good. I'm guessing from your reaction that you don't get that feeling.
I'm terrible at Excel.
So am I. That's why it's so satisfying when it happens.
I'm in a line of work where mercifully I can avoid it a lot of the time. So yeah.
I think that and it's not the game's fault at all. That is in, and I won't sort of say it is, but it's like it's just so uncompromising the whole time. Like,
uncompromising is a good word.
And it's like, so You can never just have a Forza moment, really, or it doesn't feel that way anyway, right? You just sort of like, kind of like barrel through some trees or like over a rock and kind of like, really have... The thing that I kind of missed a little bit from this, and it is just... It wasn't super thrilling for me, if that makes sense. That is in, it just felt really amazingly functional.
Yeah, if you bumped into it at a party, it would be a massive fun sponge. It really would. It would be so dull to talk to. Whereas if you talk to a Forza Horizon, you'd have a great time.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You'd come away from it thinking like, yeah, but do they have a soul?
Yeah.
Whereas
yeah, Forza's offering you all the pills in the world. Right?
Yeah, hey, let's have a party. You're at a party, Forza. I know. Yeah, like.
Yeah. So, and I'm really excited to kind of do the comparison with EA WRC because it's so similar, but actually there's plenty of moments of difference, and you can see the EA-ification of it as well. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. But what would you give this out of 10?
I would probably, for me personally, I would give it probably an 8, but I could very easily see that going to a 9 if you love it, a 7 if not. Like it's Marmite. I think if you're on board with what it's trying to do and you're happy with like having the absolute what's it's kicked out of you every time, to the extent you're probably not actually going to see a fair chunk of the game, then you'll get along famously with it and love beating your head against that particular brick wall. But if you're not, like, you're just not, and it's never going to do anything to convince you, because it's not like there's an arcade mode, or something like that to sort of lighten things up. And I think it probably, for me personally, that would be the one thing that would tip it over the edge, was just a little throwaway mode. Where
I think they thought that's what Rallycross was going to be.
Well, but that's,
here's where you can have a little bit of fun.
But that's kind of a really, really good point to make, though, because and look at how that panned out. Like it's basically the same on a shorter circuit. It's one of those ones that for me, there's that little spark of something. A little extra variety would have gone a really, 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 really long way with it. Yeah,
I think it's perfectly described. I kind of sort of summed it up as well in my head, where it was like, it's really, really good. Just a little too sim-like. A
bit too po-faced.
Yes, a little bit. So, but I'd go for an 8 out of 10 as well. That's what I had down as well, where I thought, and we always say that, might have people sort of listen to the podcast and go, 8 out of 10, that's crazy, and we think it's one of the best rally games ever and stuff. 8 out of 10 is a very, very good score. That is in, so we will come back to that discussion around the Codemasters, but I am eager to hear a little bit about Sega Rally, because I'm going to be honest, going back to 1994, sort of when Colin McRae was in his pomp, and I probably played Sega Rally a couple of times, maybe in the arcade, and that might be about it. And I never owned a Saturn, so I know you're an eager beaver, so hop to it. So
Sega Rally, OG Sega Rally, mid-90s in the arcade, is very likely one of my favourite games of all time. I bloody loved it back in the day. And there was a little bowling alley near to where I lived that had a machine, and every time, without fail, I would be spending most of my money on Sega Rally. To the extent that I think if you tot it up, it's probably the machine I spent the most money on.
Should have bought the machine.
Should have just bought it, yeah. And I still remember, friends' parents looking over my shoulder and being like, "Remind me never to let you drive me anywhere. The amount you're using that handbrake." And I'm like, "But it's Rally!" I go back a long way with it. And it's going to be interesting to hear what you say about like Codemasters and WRC and stuff like that, because I think in a perfect world I would be sat here instead talking about like Sega Rally 7 or something like that. I wish they'd sort of stuck with it and carried it on. As it was, it didn't really happen, and I think the last kind of major ones were sort of the mid-noughties.
I think it made it to PS3.
And funnily enough, they had some of that terrain deformation thing going on as well. So as you go through subsequent laps, it gets a bit trickier and all that. But that is building on some very, very solid mid-90s foundations. Because I think for me, the the main reason, above all else, that I keep coming back to this game is the handling. Like, it just handles so well. For an arcade rally game, it just does exactly what you need it to do. And it's tricky, but not, like, ball-punishingly difficult, like Dirt Rally is. So you can hop in, and you can probably get, realistically, like, about halfway through it without much hassle. But then, you'll realise that you actually do need to practice some more and do that arcade learning.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's 2 cars, there's 3 tracks, something like if you would call it content light, right? Even the Saturn version, they've not really bothered to put much else in.
Okay.
Like, you can tweak your car a little bit, which is kind of a new thing. And what's kind of cool is they have different leaderboards for the kind of setup of the car. So it goes into some more detail than the arcade version does. You've got a 2-player as well.
Yeah. Split screen.
Yeah. And apart from that, it's arcade and time attack. Like, that is it.
Yeah.
So, by 2025 standards, it's content light. But for 1995 standards, as a home conversion of a really impressive arcade game, you've got to give it credit.
Yeah.
Sure, it doesn't look as good. Obviously, it doesn't. How could it? But it still runs nicely. Bit of pop-up and all that kind of stuff. But if you've played it as many times as I have, you will know those tracks. Like, it almost doesn't matter.
If you cause your own pop-up, that is an bump in it.
I admit that's never happened.
Wait a minute, what?
But yeah, like, I think for me, especially for the Sega Saturn version, the thing that jumped out at me the most as being possibly the most impressive thing about this is not the fun bits of soundtrack for, like, the game over screen and all that kind of stuff, because this is peak Sega, where everything had like a finish kind of jingle going on with it. But it's the fact that they managed to take that really, really incredibly silky smooth handling and put it on a D-pad.
Oh yeah.
Like,
you can still feel it,
and it still feels right. Like, on a flipping D-pad. How does that work, right? Like, you could sit there and put it on analog sticks and with analog triggers, and I'd go like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, fine, fair enough, that works, that figures. But to do it on, like, digital on-off buttons, I think is really impressive. Like, genuinely, straight up, really impressive bit of conversion.
Do you think that's something they spent a lot of time crunching over or something? Like, because it feels like...
Yeah.
It feels like what you're saying is the developers knew what they had, and that was one of the best parts of the game, and they were like, so therefore we need to make it feel like that at home as well.
Yeah, so, like, the Sega Retro website reckons that this is the first time that, like, surfaces mattered in your racing game, right? And as a rally game, that tracks, if you'll excuse the pun.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think you're exactly right, that they looked at it and went, okay, well, we've got this cool sort of surface, like, feel tech. We've got the handling of these 2 very distinctive feeling cars down. We've got this new console coming out. We want it to be showy. Yeah, we absolutely have to make sure we're translating that properly. I think it's the only sensible thing to do, especially when you add in the fact that there's not a heck of a lot of meat on the bones. You need something. You need a really impressive hook, and I think the way it plays is that. So yeah, if you looked at it through modern day eyes, you would say, yeah, but where's the rest of the game? Like, this is almost the DLC mode that I wanted in Dirt Rally 2.
Yeah,
if they had just put in, like, a port of Sega Rally or an ode to it, like you said about Colin McRae, like, if they just put something like a tribute to it or something like that, 3 tracks, dead quick, over in 15 minutes if you're good enough, I would be more than happy.
Yeah. You'd be like, I don't have to go back now, because it's just like, it's here where it needs to be.
We nailed it, we've completed it. And I hate to keep harping on about it, but that handling, like, the reason I still keep going back to Sega Rally is that nothing's quite done it the same. Like, it's close, it's really close, but it's still not quite grabbed me. And to the extent that actually recently it was Forza Horizon 4 was probably the closest I got to it. Okay. Like, it's certain cars and certain tracks and certain conditions. Sure, it's close. It's not the same. It's close. And I mean, Sega Rally, the 2006 one, like, I've got that kicking around somewhere, and again, it's good. It's great. Is it the same? It's not quite. So yeah, like, I wish we would get it back. I really do. Like, update it, port it, like bring it out on modern consoles. Give us something like.
Well, they're doing a lot of that now, aren't they? Where Sega. Well, I mean, I haven't seen anything actually happen with this yet, but obviously a few months ago, didn't they? They kind of said they were going to bring out a bunch of old games and put some twists in it. Obviously, Crazy Taxi's on the on the ramp, if you will. But like ready to come out and stuff at some point. But I've not seen any actual dates attached or.
I mean, like for my tuppence worth, without wishing to go off on too much of a tangent, but like the studio that make the Yakuza, the Like a Dragon games, making Virtua Fighter 6 is the best bit of news.
Yeah.
And I've already pre-bought that one. Like, because they're going to do, I'm sure they're going to do a great job with it.
Has that got a date attached for it?
Yes, I think it's later this month,
cool.
actually.
Wow.
So yeah, like absolutely all over that. But that same studio, like within the Like a Dragon games, have historically been putting more and more different bits of emulated Sega arcade games and Master System games, the kind of ones that you don't get on compilations and things like that. So, I mean, even if they took a Sega Rally and buried it somewhere in one of the Like a Dragon games, I would take that. That would be a win. I would have that all day. I assume it won't happen, but a boy can dream.
To write to them.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, there really isn't a heck of a lot more to say about it. Like, graphically, yes, it's a Sega Saturn and looks as such, but you can still look at it and say, oh, well, that's Sega Rally. Like, I know what I'm looking at. So, yeah, like, my head is saying this is a 7. My heart is saying it's an 8. I am going to give it a 7, just because I really, really do genuinely wish this was a more modern take on it. It's as simple as that.
Well, that's fair, though. That is, like you say, I've got a game coming up next week that very similar sort of thoughts and feels about it, where it's like, you kind of get that modern sort of spin on it and kind of go, well, actually, I want it again, and I want it now. Like, but I want it up to this standard. So, it feels like a right way of putting it. I mean, was there any question I wanted to ask? Was there any other games in the arcade, any other driving games that you would be like? Were you just like? Was there anything else there, or were you just like, I just would choose?
I would sometimes be found on Daytona.
Okay.
Like this is an era of Sega that I have a real soft spot for, like where big chunky polygons, everything was moving really really fast, and that like proper like vibrant Sega blue sky kind of thing. So yeah, it would generally be one of those two.
So you hold on to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good. Back to the discussion around Codemasters games.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about EA WRC. So I saw this come up on Game Pass, and I was like, oh, it's coming out literally start of December, and I was like, oh, brilliant. And then I saw that actually they said it was in line pretty much, well, maybe about a month behind the 2024 I guess extension. Really, you don't get a lot with it, but it was £4.50 if you already had Ultimate.
Okay.
So it was like one of those things where it was like, oh, you've already got this, especially for you. And I was like, £4.50, let's go for it. And effectively what you gain from that is just extra places to race. So I think it's Poland and Latvia, I think, ended up getting added to it. And some extra, I think there's a few extra cars and things, but you don't get a lot for it. But I think that since that's came out, I think it's a lot more stable as a game, is what I'm sort of hearing and seeing. I think when this first came out in 2023, a lot of people were sort of saying it felt like there was quite a few bugs with it, which you would... It sounds bad when you say this. You would expect from an EA Sports game now, which is a ridiculous thing to say. But when I came to experience it, I thought it was really, really good. So this is effectively, like I said, Dirt Rally 3, but it's made on a different engine. So Dirt Rally 2 was made on Ego, I think it's called, their initial engine that they built with Sony. But this went into Unreal 4 engine.
Okay, right.
So it was almost like, I guess what I was really looking for was, what do the graphics look like? What's the game performance like?
Does it look like an Unreal engine?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it different, basically? Is the environment different? Is the damage different on the car, kind of thing?
Does everything look like an asset flip?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. It's like, is it going to get much worse? Especially when you feel like, I can just imagine the sort of process where EA like knock on Codemasters' door. It's just sort of like, oh, we've bought you and you've got to make your game worse for us. Cheers. And just like fucked up. Like, so I was like really worried, especially when the reviews I'd seen were like, no, it's quite buggy and stuff. And I was like, I'll give it a go and see if it's as good as Dirt Rally, and sort of get into this conversation, sort of, which is better. Because Dirt Rally's 5 years old now, but it doesn't miss a beat. Like, Dirt Rally 2, sorry, doesn't miss a beat. Like, as in, it doesn't look like a 5-year-old game at all. So yeah, initial impressions then. It's really on the flip side of what I was just saying, there's something kind of warming about seeing EA just completely take over the sports world and just have the exact same landing page in every single game that they do. Like, is it, you've just kind of, eventually they've broken my back about it. I'm like, right, you're fine, it looks exactly the same fucking thing that they just kind of do every single time, where it's like, I don't feel like I need to describe too much, because I'm sure people can just sort of see it in their heads. Like,
I can. Sorry, get more sweet.
Yeah, just the way that the menu ticks over and stuff. Yeah, I was just like, oh, this looks like an EA Sports game. It asks you to pick a character at the start, and there's just 16 presets, and none of them look like me. Like, as in, which is probably a damning indictment on me, really. Be like, oh, you're not a rally driver. But
wouldn't it have been freakier if they did?
Yeah, well, but I mean, you could have had some sort of customization where you could have made. I mean, how many times they do it in they do it in any other EA Sports game where you have a career and things. Yeah. But then I kind of thought about it. I was like, they've clearly just went, we don't really give a shit about that, because you kind of don't really see the character.
You're going to be in a helmet most of the time.
Exactly, like the fucking Stig on Top Gear. It's just like, it doesn't actually matter what you look like, it matters what you drive like. So I kind of got over that pretty quickly. I noticed that Dirt Rally 2 has Rallycross, and that had been lost now for EA WRC. Oh. But one thing that WRC had that I appreciated, certainly, and I think it depends on who you are and how much you've played these games, was a rally school.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, this is good, because there is an assumption that you are a rally driver when you play Dirt 2 or 2.0. Yeah. Whereas, like, actually, in this one, well done, Codemasters and EA and whoever made that joint decision between them to kind of think, actually, it's probably worth to kind of go over the sort of pointers around cornering and things like that again, because actually not all of us have played that many rally games, that is in, so it's worth kind of knowing how to drift exactly and stuff. And
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to Google quickly, because I swear there was some kind of like tutorial on like at least Dirt Rally 1, because I remember sitting through like what was basically a seminar about road camber in a game, and like, was it Dirtfish or something like that, like a big like free roam bit that was in Dirt Rally 2 that I think was in 1, maybe.
I'm looking blankly at you. I didn't experience that, certainly. Have a look while I press on.
Curious, yeah.
Anyway, I really appreciated it. So I know it won't be for everybody, and there'll be people that just won't even touch that part of it. But I noticed immediately in that section that some of the commentary seemed a bit wanky, was what I've written down here. It reminded me of Rory McIlroy PGA Tour, which got brought out in, I think it was 2015, and it was like after they lost the licensing or whatever they'd done with Tiger Woods, and he'd crashed his car and hit someone with a club or whatever. Anyway, so basically it just felt like it was being written and spoken by an AI. That is in, going back to the AI sort of
Maybe
thing.
It was.
It literally is like, certainly, it just feels like just so soulless when an EA Sports game is just like somebody in the game who's part of your career is talking to you, and there's nothing about that would, I imagine, inspire me as a human being, or even my avatar in the game. Like, do you know what I mean? Where I'm just like, this person's just kind of going, all right then, Skip, we're going to go and do this now, and this is how this corner works round here. And you're like, oh, this is so disturbing to me. Like, it's a bit League of Gentlemen-y. So it feels like AI, someone's typed into AI, make me the perfect rally game, and send. And like, bye-bye. So
let's lunch.
Where I would say, and that's probably one thing this game kind of loses a little bit, is that it doesn't feel, and this sounds a bit strange, as mucky as Dirt Rally gets you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get
that. Not necessarily just like, I mean, literally like the car, but it almost feels like Dirt Rally just feels like it's got, funnily enough, all the dirt around you, if you will, and like you said, the grit bouncing up and things like that. Whereas this just feels like it doesn't quite have that edge to it. But on the flip side of that, this feels like it's got so much more accessible content. So the career mode is really genuinely quite impressive. That is in, so it just guides you. There's little guides all the time, but not like a whole text manual. It's really boring or anything. It's like little scenarios where you'll play in a calendar year, and it'll sort of just hold your hand, but not like too much. It'll just sort of say, okay, right, well, these are the kind of events you can do at this point. These are the kind of cars you can have at this point. These are, you know, the people you can buy in your team at this point. This is how this works. This is how your benefactor, who pays you a certain amount of money every single week, so you can spend this much on cars, you can spend this much on damages, you can spend this much on your skill team, if you will. Like, it just gives you all the little right pointers. And actually, this is me praising EA, because actually you can see that part where they've done this for years and really applied it super well to take off that face off Dirt Rally 2 and make it just a really, still very challenging, still very good looking, handles great, sounds amazing, and they've just made it a little bit easier for everybody to understand what's going on.
I've just realised Dirt Rally 2 is that person at the party that you go and talk to and then they just sort of turn around and stare at you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this is more like the person that would actually have a conversation with you, and
yes,
you might not be the best mates by the end of it, but like, they're fine.
Yeah.
All right.
A bit more like that, yeah.
A bit more approachable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, the career mode, and I'll go into, there's a little bit more as well, but the career mode, definitely the bit that I spent the most time with during the week, and it was almost like you get a calendar, like I say, and it'll go, right, the benefactor, it'll kind of point you in the right direction. It'll be like, the benefactor really wants you to do this event, and then it'll tell you, right, what type of car you have, and you can build your own car as well from scratch, which is really, and that's really cool. That is to build your own rally car. That is and it has all the right amount of customization about it. You know, I think that was probably what was missing from Dirt 2.0, almost, in a way that I feel like they've just kind of thought, we need something that's a bit more of a hook in this game that will just have a bit more narrative drive to it than
drive.
Yeah. So yeah, I was really impressed with that. Something that was in this that I'd never even heard of in my entire life was a regularity rally.
Oh,
yeah.
What's that? Something to do with
that's what I was like. Yeah, I was like, the O was. I was like, I thought you said O was in like.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Never heard of
it. You have to drive at a regular speed. That is in, so that it's not. So it's not about hitting. You have to hit certain checkpoints at certain times. So it'll be like, you're expected to finish. So you're expected to be at 37 miles per hour this entire rally. So your co-driver
that must be really difficult.
Yeah, so your co-driver is kind of like, sort of like, speed a little bit down, or speed, you know, like, slow down. I found that really therapeutic. Like I said, it was my favourite type of rally to be doing. I was like, you know, and it probably, like, as you got on difficulty wise, so you start off as you can start off with a junior sort of WRC like 3 rally, and you can get higher. And I worked my way up sort of, and I was halfway through this sort of WRC Rally 2 effectively championship sort of career, and it's just like, and they do get slightly harder, but certainly to start off with, I found it really easy to do those, and I was like, quite enjoyed it. And it was sort of like, you know, it was funny to sort of go from not being able to do a rally at all, like as in Dirt 2, to being in this game, and the rally stages are longer, and I think that was to do with the fact that I think it's just, that's probably where the 5 years has helped, and it's probably the game can actually start to generate that much data and things like that, and so you could get up to like 23-minute rallies and things. It's like, you know, that, so it does feel like a real challenge, and it's something really, really fun. And yeah, you can sort of see it get a little bit sort of more challenging, but it still remains that I won rallies on this. I won rally stages, whereas Dirt 2, I felt like I could barely do it. And that regularity rally. Sorry, that's hard to say. The first time I did one of those, I won the first one, and I was just like, "All right, okay, great." Like, isn't it? I can do those. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it just felt like when I was looking at the difference that I was trying to find about the engine and stuff, it just felt a little bit more forgiving, like almost like, but not necessarily negatively. That was positive, but negatively, that is in the damage didn't necessarily feel as realistic as Dirt 2.0 did feel for me. But yeah, the one thing that was really weird and annoying as well about trying to sort out a multiplayer / sort of challenge situation. So I was playing this with my friend Nath, who's been on the podcast before, and he composed our music and our photos and things. So we kind of we've been having a little bit of a time trial off, if you will.
Nice.
But we had to make a club and join a club, and you know what it's like nowadays, where it's like you've got to scan a QR code, and then you have to download the app to put yourself into the club before you could just even see what each of us scores were. And to be honest, to start off with, we were just literally WhatsApping our scores, WhatsApping our times, even just be like, oh, I've done this, until you can see. But it is quite nice to see it on a leaderboard, and then you can get their ghost data as well, which is pretty cool. So it's nice to be able. But I find the ghost data driving extremely distracting, because immediately I've got to floor it here to get past this, and that's a bad idea. You just end up crashing. But it's interesting that one of my friends, Matt, he said, I saw he was playing the other night, and I was like, oh, he played on and so he's going to hopefully join the club now as well, and we'll get into that. So I'm hoping we'll build something up. The time trials are really, really fun and cool as well. So you can kind of do everything of a variation all the way from a career into the time trials, and there's just, it feels like there's more content in this, and it definitely feels a little bit, weirdly enough, whilst I said that Dirt Rally 2 you can't see any difference graphically from 5 years ago, in terms of a modernised game that feels like a really lovely experience to play, I do think that EA WRC actually has the edge on it. So I kind of came to the idea then, we talked about the club analogy, the last thing I kind of had in my head was that Dirt Rally 2 feels like Microsoft Flight Simulator and EA WRC feels like Football Manager.
Okay, great.
They're my comparisons with these games, really. So, and I kind of think that, and remember, this is completely subjective to me, and I think it's probably just because of the accessibility, and I was finding it a bit easier in this game. I don't think there's that much different between them. I would say that I've got preference for WRC. Would I give it a higher score? Probably not. I'd probably say it's an 8 out of 10 as well, which I know is a bit of a cop-out, but actually, for me personally, I found myself enjoying that game more than I did Dirt Rally 2. But that's not to say there's anything wrong with either of them. They're just different experiences. Dirt Rally was there to crush me, and deservedly so. EA WRC was almost there to hold my hand. Listen, but it still delivered the same experience. A very strange sort of feeling for me.
No, it's horses for courses, I guess, isn't it? And just to quickly come back to the sort of tutorial bit, I think I've worked out what's gone on here.
Okay. What have I done wrong?
No, it's not. It's not you doing something wrong. Dirt Rally 1 did, in fact, have tutorial videos in it about rally driving. So I didn't fever dream a seminar about road camber. That actually happened. And they didn't have them in Dirt Rally 2. But there was this kind of free roam area that you could go to and kind of try stuff and tinker with the car and all that. That kind of worked kind of like the shakedown segments where you could go and muck about. But it looks as though they did put out some tutorial videos for Dirt Rally 2, but they put them on YouTube. Which seemingly
is fine, but I mean, I just kind of want and like I say, there's tutorial videos, but actually doing a rally school with your own hands, that is, you start to get a feel for what the throttle should be, and
it's a controlled environment as well, and the kind of the pressure of the race is off, and so I think the way you're describing it from EA WRC, I think is perfectly valid and good.
No, cool. So I think that's a pretty strong start. to be honest, to drive January. Good rallying.
Yeah.
I think that we should all stay away from Forza Horizon's pills for a little while longer.
Maybe, but unfortunately I very nearly did review it for some point this month, because I did muck about with it quite a lot over Christmas.
It is fun though, isn't it? We'll probably come back to Forza at some point.
Because I've been playing Forza Horizon 4. I got it cheap before they delisted it everywhere. And it's kind of cool to see a sort of Great Britain in a video game like that. What gets me is how much stuff you can drive through with no consequence, and then suddenly there's a tree out of all of the other trees that you've ploughed through.
One of my favourite things actually is watching videos that is usually on Reddit of people with this game, for example EA WRC, is that sort of people just randomly hit tiny little signs and just take them out of the rally and just be so angry about it. It's just they've just driven for 21 minutes and hit a tiny sign and it just goes bump. And good on them to show the world that happened to them.
This performative outrage is great.
Cool, right, well, we will
come to a screeching halt.
Exactly, thank you very much for that, and we will speak to you again soon.
Cheers.